morning from Sugar City Studios, beautiful, historic Savannah, Georgia, downtown on Johnson Square. Dr. Walter Kemmsies, North Point of View. Good morning, Walter.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
Great.
Great. Knocking into season 2 here.
Mm-hmm.
What's the topic of today? We talked about a few things. What's on your mind right now?
It's the shipping crisis.
All right. So that sounds pretty self-evident when you say it, but what's your definition of the shipping crisis?
All right. Well, before we define it, I'm just going to say my definition is not what I read in the Financial Times yesterday.
Okay.
It talked about an inventory recession. A friend of mine sent me the article. I read it twice. I still do not know what this guy was talking about. I know, what inventory recession is this? Anyways, the way to look at it, I think, is this. And I'm expanding something that my friends at the Pacific Maritime Shipping Association on the West Coast wrote, but just making it more general. Basically, the shipping crisis is I couldn't find workers to make things in my factory. I couldn't get the things in my factory into a container. I couldn't get the container to the port. I couldn't get the container from the port onto a ship. I could not get my container off the ship and into a port. I could not take my container from the port to where it needed to go. That's the shipping crisis. Every step of the economy where transportation is involved is gummed up all around the world. It's not just in the U.S.
Yeah, it's like the reverse dominoes, right? It's like they're not falling, they're all standing up. We're not moving any of them, right?
Exactly. I love that, the reverse domino theory.
So
yeah,
what the heck do we do, man? I mean, it's just like it's driving everybody crazy right now, right?
Exactly. Well, one thing I wouldn't do is give people more money to spend in another stimulus bill because we don't need people spending willy-nilly. It's not a great idea at this point.
Yeah, everybody's got plenty of TVs and sofas at this point, right? We've got all my yard equipment. I'm set. I just need to go take a trip or go out to eat or go to the movies, right?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So, and I personally am waiting for next year because I'm going to go on to those websites that sell things secondhand, like eBay.
Yeah, boats, right? Trucks, you name it.
Exactly.
Lawnmowers, you don't need 3 lawnmowers, right?
No, you don't.
Or 8 fishing rods,
right.
Or all that stuff.
And and Walter needs a new car, so I'll wait till next year and I'll get an almost new car.
So the shipping crisis is, I mean, I think we thought it was going to, taper off, 37, vessels, outside of the ports of LA, Long Beach. I think in Savannah, yesterday or the day before, there were 12 or 13 vessels anchored, outside the, gateway trying to get in.
Right.
It's not just, West Coast, right? It's East Coast. It's global.
It is global. And the problem is when you try to move the ship to go not to this port, but instead go into another port, and you got to redo all of the customs paperwork. So it's sometimes you can get stuck sitting there, not because the port can't take you, but because the paperwork has to be straightened out. So otherwise the ship pulls into the port, nothing can get unloaded, and the berth sits there occupied for nothing.
Well, and we talked, I think maybe last month, that, at this point of the year, everybody's gearing up for the holiday season too, right?
Wrong. 2 months ago, they started gearing up, and I kid you not. I checked with my friends at the Port of Long Beach.
June, really? Yeah, okay, that makes sense, right?
Yeah. He said June, they already had people trying to bring stuff in. There's a problem with logistics in that everybody runs into a problem like this, and they all sit down and they formulate a strategy, and the one thing they're missing in their strategy is to figure out what all the other people are doing, because this is the time to be a contrarian. This is not the time to do what everybody else is doing, because it's something he once explained to me, that if I wanted a different outcome, I should try doing a different thing.
Right.
Well, if you try to do the same thing everybody else is doing, it's not going to work.
Everybody going to the same restaurant at the same time, right?
Exactly.
So what's the answer then? What do you do? What do you do as a contrarian right now?
It's tough, but I think trying to bring your stuff in too early is not going to work. It's
Do you go in late? Do you like a football game? Like you wait until almost the game starts,
I would.
and then the last 3 minutes before kickoff, there's no line, and
That's
you
right.
walk right into the stadium, right into your seat, right?
Exactly. That's that's what you have to do. And look, I mean,
Isn't that though risky? I mean, in terms of getting that past, like if I had, a board of directors and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna take our annual, sales,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna wait till the last possible, maybe even 5 minutes past the last minute, and then we're gonna sneak into the stadium." Is your board gonna go along with that?
Oh, I think that's too much. But let me, but it is a correct offer, right? If everybody's trying to rush this stuff in right now,
Yeah.
and what we're seeing is what would normally be a $2,000 charge for a 40-foot container to go from Shanghai to Los Angeles, we heard of somebody the other day who paid $23,000, so 11 times that amount, plus huge surcharges on the rail side of this. If you're a logistics manager, you're already in a lot of trouble because you're paying an unbelievable amount of money for stuff that probably is not worth as much as what you're paying for the container.
Right.
And it creates inflation fears. You need to raise your prices and all of that. But the bottom line is that once you're in trouble, you can relax. You're in trouble, and we are in trouble right now. So relax and say, you know what? Maybe I don't try to rush my Christmas merchandise in now and then rent a zillion trailers to stick it in for storage because I don't have the industrial real estate space for it. Maybe we just try to schedule things for when we would normally do it, and maybe even push it back a little bit because we don't want to, play this game.
That's we're in trouble. Let's stop doing the same thing that got us here, right?
Exactly.
Let's step back, chill out a little bit. And, in a macro sense, so we've had two big, commodity surges in the past 12 months, lumber and steel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think to some extent, it seems that that's worked with the lumber futures. They've come back down.
Mm-hmm.
People sort of pulled back. On the steel, though, it hasn't happened.
Nah.
And so I know there are different factors and so there are reasons. But to your point, I think that was borne out in the lumber futures and in housing costs and that kind of thing. There was just a little bit of a pullback.
No, that's true. And there are other things that are creating a lot of chaos, Mark, like automobile makers complain that they can't get chips.
Right.
Well, most of the chips that we use for appliances and cars, etc., come from Taiwan. And the chip fabs use an enormous amount of water. And Taiwan is now in the midst of one of the longest and the worst drought in its history.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, so if they're trucking water up to the fabs to try to keep them running. So that's why so we've got, the COVID part, and then you have the whole weather element that has been absolutely wild in the Plata River in Argentina is also at a 70-year low. And then we got all of these forest fires going on, in the west of the United States. So there's a lot of other disruptions that are happening on top of what COVID has done.
So with the shipping crisis, as with the infrastructure talk that we did a little bit earlier, it's a big bundle, and we'll continue to unpack it. So look to hear more from us. Walter, always great being with you. Thanks again for being here. Love the conversation, man.
Yeah, it's always great, Mark.
All right.
Take
see
care.
ya.